Today, I'm going to be ranking the top 10 NBA teams that will surprise you in this upcoming NBA season. At number 10, I have the Detroit Pistons. This might sound a little crazy. The Pistons were 14-68 last season. They were the worst team in the entire NBA. I think that there's a lot of positives going into this next season for the Pistons. I don't think their lineup is 14-68 bad like they were last year. At point guard, you got Cade Cunningham. I'm a believer in Cade Cunningham. I really am. I think he's going to be a star one day. If not, you consider him to be one already. Then they have Jaden Ivey at the 2, which they started to pump minutes into him at the end of the season. Asar Thompson was inconsistent. He started off the year really good, ended the year kind of mid, arguably bad. Now the Pistons bring back Tobias Harris, signing him this offseason. That's going to help a lot. And Jalen Duren at center is one of the league's youngest rising stars. They also got Malik Beasley off the bench, which is definitely going to help. And Simone Fontecchio, I think, is very underrated. They have him off the bench as well. And they also have Isaiah Stewart. They also signed Tim Hardaway Jr., which I don't know how much he's going to help, but it's worth noting. I'm not saying the Pistons are going to make the playoffs because, like, they're not going to make the playoffs. I mean, maybe there's a world where they sneak into the play-in and then a miracle happens, right? Just because the East is so weak. But I would not expect them to get 14 wins again. They're going to get somewhere in the 20s or maybe even, nah, I wouldn't say low 30s, but they're going to get like upper 20s, maybe 30 wins. At number 9, I have the Brooklyn Nets. Last season, the Brooklyn Nets were 32-50. They were not very good at all. And I'm putting them on this list in a bad way. So I'm not saying they're going to surprise you in a good way. I think that whatever your expectations are for this team, you got to lower them even more because this team is going to be really bad. Maybe even the worst team in the entire Eastern Conference, maybe the worst team in the entire league. This is who they're rolling out there. We have Dennis Schroeder at point guard. Shooting guard is Cam Thomas. Small forward is Cameron Johnson. Power forward, Dorian Finney-Smith. And center is their franchise player, Nick Claxton. Off the bench, you have Ben Simmons, which can we even say he's going to be off the bench? We're not sure. You also got Bojan Bogdanovic, Jalen Wilson, Noah Clowney, and Day'Ron Sharpe. I just think this is going to be bad. Like, this is going to be really bad. Again, they got 32 wins last year. I mean, they might get 18 wins, 20 wins, 22, somewhere around there. I mean, I really think that this team is just going to be really bad. At number 8, I have the New Orleans Pelicans. The season ended pretty bad for the Pelicans last year as they got swept in the first round by the OKC Thunder. Of course, they were without Zion Williamson in that game, or I should say in that series, but now the Pelicans went out and they acquired DeJounte Murray. So now they have a four-headed monster: DeJounte Murray, CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, and Zion Williamson. Now, I do have to say, at the time that I'm recording this video, Brandon Ingram is still a Pelican. There are a bunch of big rumors that Brandon Ingram might get traded. So if he gets traded, that might change some things, but I don't think it changes that much because when you got Trey Murphy and Herb Jones coming off the bench, I mean, there's an argument to be made that it could be even better for them. Like if Herb is starting instead of Brandon Ingram, like you got so much offense with Murray, CJ McCollum, Ingram, and Zion that you could maybe even lose Ingram, slide Herb Jones into the starting 5 for some defense, and now things are getting really interesting. Now, the one problem that they do have is the center position. Right now, they have the rookie Missy at center. They also have Daniel Tice, Jeremiah Robinson Earl. It's just not looking too good. So, I mean, they might consider running a little, some small lineups. I don't think you could really run Zion at the 5. He's kind of short, but that is one glaring need right now, or just something that the Pelicans are going to have to address is that center position. But I think the Pelicans are going to be really good. I like their depth. They also have Jose Alvarado, who I didn't mention, Jordan Hawkins. Like, this team is scary. They got a lot of guys. After losing in the first round of last year's playoffs, I think the expectation should be, that they could go to the second round, maybe the conference finals, maybe even the finals. Who knows? The sky's the limit with this team as long as they stay healthy. At number 7, I have the Atlanta Hawks. Last season, the Hawks were 36-46, and they lost in the play-in. This season, I don't see them being that, like, in that range. Like, a lot of people kind of expect the Hawks to be this team that's just always kind of, a 7 seed or an 8 seed, or, maybe they're in the play-in, but I just don't see how this team got any better. And I'm not saying anyone said they got any better. Of course, losing to DeJounte Murray, they also lost Sadiq Bey. The lineup is going to be Trae Young, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Zachary Resache, Jalen Johnson, and Clint Capella. And yeah, like, it's not god awful, it's not terrible, but I just think this team is not great at all. Last year, the Hawks had the 27th best defensive rating, and I just don't see that improving much, if at all, unless the Hawks go out and make some crazy trade and turn their franchise around. At best, they're like a play-in team at best, but I think that there's a world where they miss the play-in completely. I will say, I think Trae Young is going to have a really good year, you know, without DeJounte Murray there anymore and really not any crazy offensive pieces. Trae Young's probably going to average close to 30 and maybe even 11 assists. I was going to say 10, but I mean, he might average 11, 12 assists. We know how good of a passer he is, but as a team, I mean, the Hawks are going to be pretty bad in my opinion. At number 6, I have the Charlotte Hornets. I don't know why, but I kind of like this Charlotte Hornets team. Now, last year they were bad. They were 21-61, one of the worst teams in the league. If it wasn't for the Pistons and Wizards, they could have easily been the worst team in the league. LaMelo Ball only played 22 games last year. Obviously, when you're a franchise player, which that is kind of debatable, maybe you think it's Brandon Miller, but when your franchise player only plays 22 games, it's gonna be hard to be good. Mark Williams also, who I think is gonna be a really good center in the NBA, only played 19 games. They also started the year without Miles Bridges. He missed I think it was 13 games, something like that. Now this team is back. They should be healthy, and listen to this starting lineup. So you can't tell me that this is not a valid starting lineup if they all stay on the court and healthy. At point guard, you got LaMelo Ball. At shooting guard, you got Brandon Miller. At small forward, you got Josh Green. At power forward, you got Miles Bridges. And at center, you got Mark Williams. I expect all of those guys to start except maybe Josh Green. Obviously, he's not, someone you get really ecstatic about and start celebrating that he's in your starting lineup. So they might try some other things, like maybe throw Grant Williams into the starting lineup, Trey Mann. I don't know. We might see some different lineups from them this year. But with a core of LaMelo Ball, of course he has to stay healthy. His ankles give out just they're not even there, right? Like they're the weakest things on planet Earth. You got LaMelo Ball, you got Brandon Miller, who looked really, really good last season. Miles Bridges is solid. He just is. And Mark Williams is one of my favorite young centers in the entire NBA. Their depth is a little bit questionable. It just is. But I don't think this is a 21 win team. And I think when people think of the Hornets, they're going to think, oh, they're going to be terrible. They're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. And I just don't know if that's true. If they can stay healthy, I think the Hornets can be in that 30 win range, maybe even flirt with a play-in berth. And I really think it just depends on their health. If LaMelo can stay healthy, if Brandon Miller can take another step forward, Miles Bridges stays on the court, Mark Williams stays, I could see them being a play-in team, as crazy as it may sound. That's about the ceiling for them. I don't really think they're gonna make the playoffs, and if they do, they're a first round exit. At number 5, I have the Phoenix Suns. This ranking may surprise some of you because I know a lot of people are very high on the Suns with that core of Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant, but I'm just not completely sold on this team, and there's a few reasons. One of them, Kevin Durant is getting older. He's just not the player that he used to be. He's gonna be 36 years old this next season. And the second main thing is this team's defense. I just don't really see it. Devin Booker, obviously not a great defender. Bradley Beal, not a great defender. Grayson Allen, you got Kevin Durant and Nurkic. It's just not a great defensive team. And in the playoffs last season, the Phoenix Suns were dead last when it came to defensive rating, and it wasn't even close. Yes, this team's gonna have very good offense when you got Book, you got Beal, even Grayson Allen was shooting lights out last year. You got KD, but we know defense wins championships. It's true. Maybe with a great offense, you can get into the playoffs and maybe win a round or something, but defense wins in the end. And I'm just thinking that this Suns team really lacks it. This is a team that also doesn't have the best depth. So if they get an injury to one of their star guys, I mean, you could say this about a lot of teams, but if this team gets an injury to one of their star guys, let's say KD goes down, and obviously Beal is very injury prone. So he's probably going to miss at least 20 games this year. This is a team that could be flirting with the play-in or maybe even missing the playoffs completely. Now, I'm not just going to assume they're going to have injuries. That's kind of weird. I think the Suns could be just a play-in team. I don't know. I think a lot of people have them, slotted in for one of those top 6 playoff spots, or obviously not one of the top spots, but 5, 6, maybe 7, just barely in the play-in. I don't know. I'm kind of low in this team, and I think they're going to be, surprisingly bad. Not bad, but I'm not putting them on this list to say they're going to, go on and win the finals. I have them lower than most people do. At number 4, I have the LA Clippers. I think that the Clippers' time is over now. Over the last decade, maybe even 15 years, the Clippers have been a perennial playoff team. You could just pretty much slot the Clippers in. They're gonna make the playoffs, right? That time may be coming to an end. Now, yeah, maybe they can make the playoffs. Maybe they make the play-in, whatever. You still got James Harden and you got Kawhi Leonard. They're obviously getting old, and that's pretty much it. Other than that, they have Terrence Mann and Derrick Jones Jr., who are both expected to start. That's not something great. You don't get too happy when you hear that as a Clippers fan, I feel like. I'm not saying they're terrible players. I know Terrence Mann's pretty solid, but I'm saying that's really just not the best. You also got Zubac at center, and we know the history of injuries that Kawhi Leonard has. he's probably going to miss some time. And then it comes down to, can James Harden be prime James Harden? I don't think so. He's not the same player that he used to be. Although last year he did look pretty solid. I have a hot take. I think that this Clippers team is going to miss the playoffs completely. Maybe they make the play-in, but I'm going to say they're going to lose in the play-in. They're not going to be one of the 8 teams that makes the Western Conference playoffs. That's why I got them so high on this ranking. I think that they are going to be not that good next year. At number 3, I have the Orlando Magic. Now, this is an interesting one because the Magic were pretty good last year. They were 47-35. They almost even got like the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th seed, but at the end of the year, they ended off with the 5th seed. Now, the Magic went out and signed KCP. He's a guy that, you know, to an NBA casual, it's like, bro, it's just Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Like, why is that such a big deal? But he's a glue guy. He's a 3-and-D guy that, you know, knows how to win. He's a winning player. This team's going to be good. You got Suggs, KCP, Franz, Paolo, and Wendell Carter Jr. The question is, how good are they actually going to be? I don't know. Are they going to go to the finals? Probably not. Are they going to go to the Eastern Conference Finals? I mean, I think there's definitely a world where that can happen. I'm just interested to see in what steps forward Paolo can take, because I think he's going to be one of the league's, you know, superstars. He's not quite there yet, but it's just going to be a question of like, how fast can he get there? I'm a big believer in Paolo and in this Magic team. When you look at the Eastern Conference, especially if you're more of an NBA casual, there's going to be a lot of other teams that stand out to you, like the Celtics, the Knicks, the Bucks, the Cavs, even the Pacers who went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, the Sixers, the Heat. And so the Magic are kind of that sneaky team that a lot of people are not that high on. Now, if you are like you're deep into the NBA community, then yeah, you probably know the Magic are gonna be pretty solid. But still, I think the Magic are gonna shock some people next year. At number 2, I have the Dallas Mavericks. Now, this is probably one of the craziest rankings in this entire video. I think it's gonna shock a lot of you guys, but I'm not very low, but I'm low on the Mavericks, who obviously just played in this past season's NBA Finals. I think the Mavs got a little bit lucky last year. You know, in the first round, they came in as the 5 seed, a red hot team, by the way, coming into the playoffs, but they were versing an injured Clippers team without Kawhi Leonard. They obviously get past them. Then they took out the Thunder, and I believe it was 4 games. But what was so big to the Mavs' success in going to the finals, in my opinion, is the Nuggets losing in 7 to the Timberwolves. My pick to go to the finals the whole time was the Denver Nuggets, and the T-Wolves took care of them for the Mavs. If the Nuggets win that game 7 against the T-Wolves, I think the Nuggets get past the Mavs and go to the finals. Obviously, we're not going to live in a world of hypotheticals and what if, so we're not going to do that. But I'm just saying, I think there was some luck going into this, obviously versus an injured Clippers team and then not having to deal with the Denver Nuggets. This is a team that also lost a lot of their rotational players in Derek Jones Jr., Josh Green, and Tim Hardaway Jr. Now, they did bring in Klay Thompson to play that, you know, small forward position for them, which I don't know how I feel about it. I'm a Warriors fan. I've always been a Klay Thompson guy. I'm a believer in him. He was obviously 0 for 10 in their play-in game and an elimination game last season, his last game as a Golden State Warrior. So a lot of the NBA world thinks Klay just sucks. I don't think he sucks. But my question for this Mavs team is defense. Obviously, they have great defensive bigs in Gafford and Lively. But other than that, I mean, Luka, Kyrie, not the best at defense. Klay used to be, but not really anymore. And PJ Washington, these guys are not, you know, gonna excel defensively. Now, last year they did somehow put up some solid defensive numbers. I don't really see it though. I would honestly be a little shocked if the Mavs return to the NBA Finals, which kind of is the expectation after losing an NBA Finals and Luka being this young superstar in the league. You know, a lot of Mavs fans are going to expect them to run it back and be back there next year. I don't really see it. I think there's a lot of other very solid teams in the West that I would pick over them. At number 1, I have the Memphis Grizzlies. Last season, the Memphis Grizzlies were 27-55. They were one of the worst teams in the entire NBA, but that was in huge part because they were missing their best players. Ja Morant only played 9 games last season, of course, because of him dealing with some legal situations and then also getting injured. Marcus Smart only played 20 games, and Desmond Bane played 42 games. Jaren also played 66, so he was there for most of the season, but that was about it. They pretty much just had Jaren Jackson Jr. playing from their core players. I also like this Grizzlies team a lot because they gave a lot of their young players a lot of playing time and experience last year when their star players were out. Like GG Jackson looked pretty good. Now he's going to be coming off the bench. They can utilize him. Vince Williams Jr. is going to be coming off the bench. That's another guy as well. So this is just not a 27-win team when you got Ja Morant, Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., and now you got Zach Edey at the center position, which we'll have to see how that goes. We all know it's not a 27-win team. We know why they had 27 wins, but I have the Grizzlies so high on this list because I think that they can be potentially like the 1 seed, the 2 seed. Like, I think they could be a top team in the West. The question is, how far are they going to go in the playoffs? I think a lot of people, after Ja missed all this time and had all this legal trouble, I think a lot of people have forgotten how good of an NBA player Ja Morant is. When he's on the court, he's like a top 15, arguably top 10 NBA player. He is that good. I think the Memphis Grizzlies are going to be a very, very scary team in this upcoming season.